Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari. Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Kishore Kishori ki jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki jai, Gonitai ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Good morning. We're reading from Canto 10, Chapter 88, and the text we're doing together is 37, although we'll be doing 38 through 39 and 40 as well, which brings us to the end of Chapter 88. So text 37. Mumuchu Pushpa Vashani Hate Pape Vrikasura Devashi Pitri Gandharva Mochita Sankatak Jiva Mumuchu Pushpavashani Hate Pape Vrikasure Devashi Pitri Gandharva Mochita Sankatak Jiva Mumuchu Pushpavashani Hate Pape Vrikasure Devashi Pitir Gandharva Mochita Sankatak Jiva. Please chant. Mumuchu Pushpavashani Hate Pape Vrikasure Devashi Pitrir Gandharva Mochita Sankatak Shiva. Mumuchu Pushpavashani Hate Pape Vrikasure Devashi Pitrir Gandharva Mochita Sankatak Jiva. Mumuchu Pushpavashani Hate Pape Vrikasure Devashi Pitrir Gandharva Mochita Sankatak Jiva. Mumuchu Pushpavashani Hate Pape Vrikasure Devashi Pitrir Gandharva Mochita Sankatak Jiva. Thank you very much. Word for word. Mumuchu, they released. Pushpa are flowers. Vashani, rain. Hate, having been killed. Pape, the sinful. Vrika asure, demon Vrika. Devarishi, the celestial sages. Pitri, departed forefathers. Gandharva, and singers of heaven. Mochita, freed. Sankatak, from danger. Shiva, Lord Shiva. The translation, this is a BBT translation. The celestial sages, Pittas and Gandharvas, rained down flowers to celebrate the killing of sinful Vrikasura. Now Lord Shiva was out of danger. Text 38 through 39. Muktam Girisam Apyaha Bhagavan Purushottama Aho Deva Mahadeva Papoyam Svena Papmana Hata Konu Mahatsvaisha Jantur Vaikrita Kilbisha Shemisyat Kim Uvishveshe Krita Gasko Jagat Guru. The translation for 38 and 39 is as follows. The Supreme Personality of Godhead then addressed Lord Girisha, who was now out of danger. Quote, just see, O Mahadev, my Lord, how this wicked man has been killed by his own sinful reactions. Indeed, what living being can hope for good fortune if he offends exalted saints? What to speak of offending the Lord and spiritual master of the universe? Purport, BBT purport, and it's drawn directly from Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, this statement of Lord Vishnu's implies a mild scolding. Quote, my dear possessor of unlimited vision, O you of clear intelligence, benedictions should not be given to wicked demons in this way. You could have been killed, but you were only concerned about saving this poor soul, so you disregarded what would happen to you as a result. Thus Acharya, close quote, thus Acharya Vishwanath Chakravarti points out Lord Narayan's mild rebuke also highlighted Lord Shiva's exceptional compassion. Text 40. Ya evam avyakrita shakti udanvata parasya shakshat paramatmano hare giritra moksham katsayak chirnotiva virmuchyate samshritibis tataripihi. And the translation for text 40. Lord Hari is the directly manifest absolute truth, the supreme soul, an unlimited ocean of inconceivable energies. Anyone who recites or hears this pastime of his saving Lord Shiva will be freed from all enemies and the repetition of birth and death. And the purport. Srila Sridhar Swami concludes this chapter with the following statement. Bhakta Sankatam Alokya Kripa Puma Hrit Ambuja Giritram Chitra Vakyat Tu Mokshayam Asas Keshava. And the translation. When Lord Keshava saw the danger confronting his devotee, his lotus-like heart became filled with sympathy. Thus he delivered Lord Shiva from the consequences of his own eloquent words, close quote. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to the 10th canto, 88th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam entitled, Lord Shiva Saved from Vrikasura. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamlam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahugana Tahagana Ragutam Vitam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutan Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitam Shah. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bando Jagat Pate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavan Ishvari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyevacha patisanam pavanebhyo vaishnebhyo namo namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimata Romapada Swami iti namine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimata Bhaktivedanta Swami iti namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, the beginning of this set of verses is a celebration of the killing of Vrikasura by the Pittas and the Gandharvas, and it took place after Vrikasura was, and these are some words that I found from Srila Prabhupada referring to this, easily persuaded to put his hand on his own head. So that this was the resolution for dealing with Vrikasura, who had been chasing Lord Shiva, and had even entered Swetadweep to try and execute this aim. So there's a wonderful narration where Srila Prabhupada gives the argument presented by Lord Narayan. So he took the form of a small brahmachari in Swetadweep when Vrikasura and Lord Shiva were there. Of course, Vrikasura is trying to come into close contact with Lord Shiva. And this is the particular way he approached Vrikasura in the form, with him being in the form of a brahmachari, wearing a deer skin with his begging pot, looking completely the part. And Vrikasura actually, there's a little bit prior to what I'm going to be presenting, but Vrikasura had in fact felt very much at ease with the young brahmachari who was Lord Narayan, and he actually disclosed to Lord Narayan precisely what had transpired with Vrikasura. And here is Srila Prabhupada giving the argument that's presented by Lord Narayan. And he says the following. So this is all in order to evoke the sympathy of Vrikasura and make him feel appreciated. So this is what he says to him. So imagine, he's actually stopping Vrikasura dead in his tracks because he's so bent on killing Lord Shiva or putting his hand on Lord Shiva's head, because that was a benediction, and he decided to use it against the very person who had provided him with that benediction, that anybody whose head he touched would immediately crack, and of course the person would die. So this is how, stopping Vrikasura dead in his tracks, Lord Narayan verbalized in this way. I myself cannot believe that Lord Shiva has in truth given you such a benediction. As far as I know, Lord Shiva is not in a sane mental condition. When he had a quarrel with his father-in-law Daksha, he was cursed to become a ghost, a pishacha. Thus, he has become the leader of the ghosts and hobgoblins. Therefore, I cannot put any faith in his words. But if you still have faith in the words of Lord Shiva, my dear king of the demons, then why don't you make an experiment by putting your hand on your own head. If the benediction proves false, then you can at once kill this Lord Shiva, so that in the future he will not care. He will not dare give you such a false benediction. So this is the argument that Lord Narayan is presenting to Vikrasura in order to try and control him. So notice one very significant thing in what Lord Narayan has said to Vikrasura. He has said to him, if the benediction proves false, then you can at once kill this Lord Shiva, so that in the future he won't give you such false benedictions. But he doesn't give the contrary. Should the benediction prove true, there's a very strong possibility you will not be around to even find out if Lord Shiva will be giving false future or accurate future predictions. So he only puts one part of the equation in front of Vikrasura. You'll get a chance to kill him, which was Vikrasura's intention. So generally, believing something means one has confidence in the statement of another person. And Lord Narayan, earlier, as I mentioned, he'd addressed Vikrasura as the son of Shakuni, just to convince him that he was known to his father, Shakuni. And Srila Prabhupada, in Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he writes, Vikrasura then took the brahmachari, Lord Narayan, to be someone known to his family. And therefore, the brahmachari's sympathetic words appealed to him, Vikrasura. So this happens. As soon as you discover some common ground or something familiar with another person, you feel more comfortable. So it may be, I hear somebody is from my country of origin, I'll naturally feel extra positively disposed to the person because I think there's some commonality. So I'll be interested to hear what the person has to say. So Lord Narayan is functioning in this kind of way. He's arousing the sympathy of Vikrasura by referring to him as the son of Shakuni. So in Vikrasura's mind, he must be known to my father if he knows that that's who my father is. So he makes a certain assumption. But it allows him to feel sympathetic immediately to Lord Narayan. So that is what sets the scene for Lord Narayan being able to make a proposal to Vikrasura, which is the one I had read earlier. So, of course, one can raise the question, can one believe something without understanding it? So this is an important question. Can you believe something without understanding it? And Lord Narayan's words describing Lord Shiva as not being in a sane mental condition are similar to words that were used by Daksha. So, of course, Lord Narayan, Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna are all knowing. So I'm going to actually read words that were used by Daksha to just show the similarity. And the reason I'm doing this is because Lord Narayan, in his supreme intelligence, is understanding a certain mentality. So here we go. This is what Daksha said of Lord Shiva. He lives in filthy places like crematoriums, and his companions are the ghosts and demons. Naked like a madman, sometimes laughing and sometimes crying. He smears crematorium ashes all over his body. He does not bathe regularly, and he ornaments his body with a garland of skulls and bones. Therefore, only in name is the Shiva auspicious. Actually, he is the most mad and inauspicious creature. Thus, he is very dear to crazy beings in the gross mode of ignorance, and he is their leader. So, this was from the 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So you can see this kind of way that Lord Shiva could be perceived externally according to one's ill feelings. So, the argument raised by Lord Narayan as a brahmachari, having attracted the sympathy of Vrikasura to throw doubt on Lord Shiva's sanity, has him raising a doubt as to the validity of Lord Shiva's benediction to Vrikasura. So it's quite a masterful, I guess, approach in order to have Vrikasura suddenly start doubting Lord Shiva's benediction. And this is somebody who had understood Lord Shiva's power and had actually even been offering portions of his own flesh into the sacrificial fire in order to be able to obtain a benediction. So it required a lot of intelligence on the part of Lord Narayan to kind of obfuscate, wipe out the particular understanding that Vrikasura, you could say understanding, or his earlier approach towards Lord Shiva. So his suggestion, Lord Narayan's suggestion, that Vrikasura run an experiment by testing out the benediction on himself, has Vrikasura putting his hand on his own head. So Lord Narayan was completely successful. Vrikasura accepted the words of Lord Narayan, and he went so far as to perform the action of carrying out the experiment to check whether that benediction of Lord Shiva actually had validity by putting his hand on his own head. And the consequence, that benediction was that any time his own hand touched somebody's head, that person's head would crack. So yeah, he performed the experiment. So I'm just making my computer screen a bit brighter. I forgot I turned it down. Okay. Clearly, he failed to comprehend the risk that was involved. And Lord Krishna describes what motivates action of one who is in ignorance. What is it that motivates somebody to act when they're in the mode of ignorance? And this is how Lord Krishna describes it. That action performed in illusion, in disregard of scriptural injunctions, and without concern for future bondage or for violence or distress caused to others, is said to be in the mode of ignorance. So there's what it is that defines, in a sense, action that's done in the mode of ignorance. It has that motive of violence, that motive of causing harm or distress. It's got nothing to do with referring to scriptural injunctions, and it's also done, it's performed in illusion. So that's Bhagavad Gita 18:25. So beliefs generally guide one's actions. What one is believing will guide how one acts. And so taking the ideas being presented by Lord Narayan, had Vrikasura take the action. So on a deeper level, a belief is a conviction or a value that one holds. But if one is functioning in illusion, then one is going by personal experience only. So this is the definition that Srila Prabhupada gives for illusion. This is how he puts it. Irresponsible work carried out in the light of one's own experience. So there's no higher reference. It's not referring to a body of knowledge. It's just based on one's experience. And that's called doing something irresponsibly, and it's just based on some experience. So Brikasura had the experience. Lord Narayan was presenting to him how he could kill Lord Shiva if the benediction proved false. And Brikasura, yes, true. Because his whole focus is on killing Lord Shiva. So if you're doing something just on your own experience, and his experience is just hearing the words of Lord Narayan, and he's so charmed by Lord Narayan, he acts. So as soon as the demon did this, his head cracked as if struck by a thunderbolt, and he immediately died. So hence we're hearing the demigod showered flowers on Lord Narayan, praising him with shouts of all glories, all thanksgiving, and they offered their obeisances to the Lord. And it says, this is Srila Prabhupada, all the denizens of the higher planetary systems, namely the demigods, the Pitras, the Gandharvas, and the inhabitants of Janaloka showered flowers on the personality of Godhead. So everyone, because they'd been witnessing this pursuit of Brikasura, of Lord Shiva, and they were concerned. There's earlier mention, if you read a Krishna book, that they actually didn't know what to do. They just observed. So actually seeing Lord Narayan taking action, and the successful action that he undertook, that Brikasura caused his own head to crack, led to this showering of flowers on Lord Narayan and paying obeisances. So one can note that they were concerned about the impending danger to Lord Shiva. So it was a great relief that Lord Shiva was out of danger now on the part of all the denizens of the high planetary systems. So one can say that Lord Vishnu, in the form of the brahmachari, he released Lord Shiva from the impending danger and saved the whole situation. That's actually the extraordinary feat of Lord Narayan. Then Lord Narayan, he informed Lord Shiva, he speaks to Lord Shiva. So Brikasura is now dead, and Lord Narayan addresses Lord Shiva because they're in the same place, Svetadweep, and he tells Lord Shiva, Brikasura was killed as a result of his own sinful activities. So he's not saying, I was responsible for helping him. He says, he was killed as a result of his own sinful activities. And he was especially sinful and offensive because he wanted to experiment on his own master, Lord Shiva. That's the particular point. He's especially sinful. And this is what Lord Narayan told Lord Shiva. My dear Lord, a person who commits an offense to great souls cannot continue to exist. He is vanquished by his own sinful activities. And this is certainly true of this demon who has committed such an offense against you. So, quite powerful. It's not that Lord Narayan himself is responsible for bringing about the death of Brikasura, but rather Brikasura's own sinful action has brought about his demise. So Srila Vishwanath, he comments that Lord Vishnu was highlighting the exceptional compassion of Lord Shiva. And he puts it this way, O you of clear intelligence, addressing Lord Shiva, Benediction should not be given to wicked demons in this way. So there's a mild chastisement. You shouldn't be giving benedictions to demons in this way. You could have been killed. But you were only concerned about saving this poor soul. So you disregarded what would happen to you as a result. One may question still, in which way would Lord Shiva have been saving Vrikasura? It's Lord Shiva's responsibility was to actually award the benediction because of the particular penance undertaken by his worshipper, Vrikasura. So he has that obligation to fulfill. It's still left up to the recipient to make their request for what benediction is wanted. So Lord Shiva was acting within the confines of his obligations. And Lord Narayan has seen it that he's actually been merciful to this poor soul because he's giving the benediction that he wants. So this feeling of sorrow for the suffering of another is what Lord Vishnu is highlighting about Lord Shiva. And Lord Narayan sees that in Lord Shiva there's an urge to help, or that he's carrying great sympathy for somebody who's in distress. So that's what Lord Narayan is recognizing in Lord Shiva. So there's a section where Vidura is talking to Maitreya. And this is to highlight this particular understanding of Lord Shiva, because I read how the demoniac view or someone being in a state of anger of Lord Shiva could perceive him. So here's how Vidura is understanding Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva, the spiritual master of the entire world, is free from enmity, is as a powerful personality, and is always satisfied in himself. How is it possible that Daksha could be inimical towards such an auspicious personality? So there's the other proper view of Lord Shiva. He's actually the spiritual master of the entire world. He's always satisfied in himself. And in the case of Vidura, he was asking of Maitreya, how could Daksha be inimical towards such a great personality? I read to you how he saw Lord Shiva as a mad person, as opposed to understanding his spiritual acumen and his incredible compassion for all living beings. So the understanding or belief by which one in the mode of ignorance is operating is defined by Lord Krishna. The understanding which considers irreligion to be religion, under the spell of illusion and darkness, and strives always in the wrong direction. Oprita is in the mode of ignorance. So that is the belief by which somebody in the mode of ignorance is operating. Their belief or their understanding is that irreligion is religion. And they're under the spell of illusion, means that they're just acting, they're not referencing scripture, they're not referencing higher authority. It's just their own experience, whatever appeals. They're under the spell of illusion and darkness, and they're always going in the wrong direction. So that is understanding or belief system that's in the mode of ignorance. That's Lord Krishna's definition in Bhagavad Gita 1832. So Srila Prabhupada explains, this is how his explanation is. The intelligence is always working the opposite of the way it should be working for somebody in the mode of ignorance. Men in the mode of ignorance understand a great soul to be a common man and accept a common man as a great soul. They think truth to be untruth and accept untruth as truth. So you can see the wrong direction. Everything is understood contrary to how it should be understood. So Just as Brikasura accepted Lord Narayan's painting of Lord Shiva as mentally insane and the possibility of his boon to be invalid or untruthful, because that wasn't true. But Brikasura had no trouble accepting that. It's because the belief system that's there in the mode of ignorance always sees something that's true as untrue. So Lord Narayan understands that particular mentality, the particular belief system of somebody in the mode of ignorance. And for Daksha too, he was offended because Lord Shiva was sitting as opposed to standing to offer him respect at his entrance. And this was prior to fire sacrifice. And he became angry, thinking Lord Shiva was expected to show respect to his father-in-law. But in actual fact, Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma are the principal demigods. So they're in a position greater than Daksha, even though Daksha is head of the Prajapatis. So Daksha was seen a great soul as a common man. So seeing untruth as truth is exemplified by his words. So this is Daksha. I had no desire to give my daughter to this person who has broken all rules of civility. Because of not observing the required rules and regulations, he's impure. But I was obliged to hand over my daughter to him, just as one teaches the messages of the Vedas to a Sudra. So, again, Lord Krishna's definition, when somebody's functioning in the mode of ignorance, the belief system is seeing something that's irreligious as religious. So in the case of Daksha, he's thinking Lord Shiva must be standing to give him respect. But in actual fact, Lord Shiva is in a much higher position. So, and then of course he paints this picture actually calling Lord Shiva a Sudra. So that he's actually the upholder, Daksha, is the upholder of religious principles, but Lord Shiva, he's just a Sudra. So it would be like teaching a Sudra something. So Lord Krishna's definition of a person in the mode of ignorance and the belief system they're holding certainly is holding true in the case of both Vrikasura and Daksha. So Lord Krishna continues in his defining the understanding by which one in the mode of ignorance takes action. And Srila Prabhupada generalizes it. So here's somebody in the mode of ignorance. How do they act? What impels them to action? In all activities, this is Srila Prabhupada explaining, in all activities he simply takes the wrong path. Therefore his intelligence is in the mode of ignorance. That's how it is. Always takes the wrong path. So Vikrasura, instead of understanding Lord Shiva's compassionate nature, he saw only an opportunity to ask of a benediction that would cause anyone's head that he would touch to crack. So he's not seeing Lord Shiva as compassionate to everyone because he's holding the belief that actually he wants to dominate, he himself wants to dominate, so he can use his hand to touch the head of everybody and cause everyone to die. I mean, that's the particular benediction that Vrikasura was asking. So he wanted to derive abominable material benefit, and certainly then to actually receive or have his desire fulfilled, to then actually consider to utilize that same benediction on the master of the spiritual world is extraordinary. So this was some examination of these 3 verses or 4 verses today. If there's something to expand the discussion, please feel free.
I was I was very taken by the definition of acting in illusion, equated to what was the word that is used? Equated to doing it according to one's experience. That's quite something, and in one sense, to understand the psychology of the mentality of illusion is that, and also equated to acting irresponsibly, which is quite something. So, being influenced by illusion, one acts irresponsible by making choices, or in one sense, rationalizing that action that is irresponsible by one's own experience. And in one sense, we see that in general, when we have to process something, we immediately take shelter of our own experience. And therefore, we able to make a choice. So if my experience is that this is dirty, or this is something that is not right, if that's how my experience was of a particular thing, then I reject, or like that. So then it brings into picture the different implicit biases that we have according to our nature. There's certain things that according to my nature I find attractive, and other things that I don't find attractive. So according to that, I make choices. So the whole thing of making it irresponsible is quite something to be very sober about it, especially for us who are trying, as you say, to break away from what Krishna says, that is one of the symptoms of illusion is that you see religion to be religion and irreligion to be religion. So we're trying to act based on transcendental knowledge and knowledge. So this thing of acting irresponsibly, when we allow ourselves to make choices only according to my perceptions, then is quite a very sobering thing to be very much aware, if we, in the path that we're trying to transcourse, to become Krishna conscious. So maybe you can comment on that.
Yeah, so the point you're bringing up is that it really struck you that this point that using one's personal experience as a reference point for making a choice would lead to irresponsible work, or an irresponsible, it could lead to an irresponsible choice. Yes, it's a very, very, very sobering thought, like very sobering. I mean, by virtue of the fact that one is practicing or is on a daily basis performing devotional activities, one is able to have a better understanding of how one is being pushed in a certain way through passion or ignorance or even goodness. So that is one good fortune. But somebody who does not have that kind of shelter is certainly completely at the mercy of, if the mode of ignorance is operating, is at the mercy of the mode of ignorance. So I'm a little bit, an example comes to my mind that I personally got exposed to. I'm a little shy to bring it up publicly, but maybe it will bring the point home. It's quite a delicate example. I got exposed one time through one of the responsibilities I held in child protection, where a child was in danger, but the parent, the one parent, expressed that they would never go against their spouse, but the spouse was the one that was inflicting harm on the child. So I realized that actually it's very difficult to break through ignorance, because that choice was based on that person having had some comfort level with the spouse, but not taking into account the incredible harm that was being inflicted on the child, and that would naturally have repercussions for the future life of that parent making such a decision to leave the child at the mercy of the parent causing harm. So it's a delicate example, but it was an example of this kind of mode of ignorance operating. So the person's comfortable with the spouse, but not able to comprehend the distress of the child. So, yes, without the protection of devotional practices that allow one to be able to some degree to observe how the modes are operating and how one is being pushed to behave in a certain way, one will behave in the particular mode that's operating at a time. Like that person was behaving completely in the mode of ignorance, and unfortunately continued to behave in the mode of ignorance despite all attempts to try and bring the person to a better understanding, because the experience was not the experience of the child.
In one sense, it's easy to see it. It's very graphic when you see it in a person in a mode of ignorance, like Brikashura, or, just people in the mode of ignorance, that this whole irresponsible and delusional sort of choices that is all based, like, say, Brikashura, it was easy to persuade him because he's a demon. He cheats. He's deceiving. He's all these things, and then that's his experience of the world. That people are there, the ones who are able to their things, and being able to deceive this one and achieve that, and all these kinds of things. That's a reality. Those are the ones who survive. So then, very easy to understand, oh, this guy is also a deceiving one. So that mentality of projecting your own experience into other things is easy to understand from that type of ignorant person. But the principle applies also to devotees who have taken shelter, on a spiritual master, who have taken shelter on the path of devotional service. As long as we are still influenced by the modes of material nature that we've been hearing about, Maharaj, Narada Muni instructing Maharaj Yudhisthira in the 7th canto, and how Narada Muni is telling them that the modes of nature creates all these contaminations And Maharaj Yudhisthira say, well, what can do? We're conditioned souls. So how can we free you? How can you have a chance? To eliminate the modes of nature. When you're in the modes of nature, how can you advance in Krishna consciousness? And that's the situation to many devotees who still have to overcome the modes of nature. And Narada Muni explains you have to be completely under the guidance and the shelter and serving the instructions of the spiritual masters and your spiritual master and the predecessors of your spiritual master.
Yes. If somebody practicing devotional life is, the spiritual master is not there to, make every decision for one. So some general principle will be presented to the person, or some general guidance will be given that, like an instruction that the person has to keep in mind. And that is the protection from sliding into the modes. But it may well be that a person will fall into the trap of being impelled to action. We've been discussing the mode of ignorance, may be impelled to action that's in the mode of ignorance, where actually there's offense to other Vaishnavas. And this is justified because the body of experience that the person carries may be such that they can accept certain persons and they can't accept other persons, whatever the criterion is according to their experience. So the other persons will also be Vaishnavas, but they won't be accepting of those persons because there's, in the mode of ignorance, there's relying on personal experience. I work well with these people who function in this kind of way, who think in this kind of way. But I don't function so well, and I don't think I can function so well with persons who think in a different way, maybe a different ethnicity, different style of doing things. I don't function so well with that. And so there may very easily be offense to persons that fall into the category that doesn't fit with one's personal experience. So there is the danger, quite right. But if one falls back all the time on instruction that was received by the spiritual master, who understands the nature, who understands something of which modes are functioning within a person, that should act as a kind of buffer for falling into mode of ignorance action. But if the person forgets, yes, that can certainly lead to that path of offense. And in the case of these, a demon like Vikrasura, and Krishna puts it, a person can't continue to exist even with performing such a huge offense. And indeed, he ceased to exist very soon after performing such a terrible offense.
Yeah, the same thing happened with Daksha, and Daksha was, a devotee. Daksha is among the devas. So, and he received the same type of punishment. His head was chopped. It happens that then Lord Shiva helped him by giving him another head. Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you so much for your class. I appreciated the example of Vitrasura and Daksha. And one thing I was thinking was that it seems like that everything has a price. So to achieve this benediction of having touch somebody and crack the skull, he had to perform lot of penance, and by bestowing that power to this demon, there is a potential to do lot of good also, right? That he can use this power to annihilate other demons. But somehow when power comes into picture, it has a tendency to corrupt. So I'm just thinking about this concept of power. So is power supposed to be treated something to go away from because that has a potential of corrupting the mind, or how one should perceive this? Because Daksha also had given a lot of power, and he did a lot of good things. He could have done a lot more good things. He's doing it, but somehow there's some idea, something happens, and then there's deviation and some corruption.
Yes. Of course, the starting point of the person is the important factor. So, you're highlighting the particular issue of power and how power is dealt with by an individual, and asking the question, maybe it's wise to stay away from power because it seems to just bring about corruption. Well, again, it has to do with the particular belief system one is carrying, the particular understanding one is carrying, because that is what is behind how one is going to act. So that's the starting point. What's the belief system that the person is holding? What's the understanding the person is holding? So if the belief system is closely aligned with a higher body of knowledge, then that can be referenced whenever situations arise, and it can help one in making proper choices. But if that is not there, there's no reference to some sort of scripture, because that's where principles for operating as a human are given. So if that's not there, then the particular nature of the person will be operating. And that's where the danger comes with power given to a person who has a belief system that isn't reliant on operating with proper religious principles. That's when you see power being used indiscriminately, brutally, unkindly, destructively. But the power is kept in check because if the person is relying on a higher body of knowledge, because then the person is actually viewing their belief system is that they're holding a responsibility that should be used for the good of everyone, just like you brought up. You have power and you can use it for the good of everyone. So it's viewed more as a responsibility to care for, protect, and allow others to flourish. So it's a completely different orientation from somebody who doesn't have that body of knowledge, isn't holding any kind of principles in mind that will dictate how they will behave. So it will have more to do with personal aggrandizement, personally obtaining what one selfishly believes will augment one's status, will give one greater enjoyment. So it's a very different orientation, and it all rests on the belief system that's been held by the individual who has received power of some sort, be it position or some facility. And certainly it has danger, but by the actions that the person takes, one will be able to know what belief system they're operating in. If the result is distress that's being caused, wiping people out of the picture, that was Srikasura. He wants to wipe people out of the picture. Then you understand oh, this is that belief system that's operating is not actually grounded in religious principles. On the other hand, if you see power being used where actually persons receive more space to, other persons receive more space to function well, to actually grow, to expand their abilities, then you understand, oh, this person is holding power and their belief system is one that is taking their responsibility, taking their power to be a responsibility to be used for the betterment of society. So you can see it by what results. You can tell what the belief system is the person's holding. And that can apply in devotional circles too. If one isn't using the buffer of instructions from the spiritual master, if that slips out of the picture, there's the danger that the recourse is to, what's comfortable for one personally. And that's where a problem comes in, misuse of power. So, thank you very much for your kind attention. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Thanks, Vaishnav.